Okay, so I guess we'll just start. So welcome everyone to Local DAO Summer, which is a multi-week virtual event talking about localism and how on-chain can support local communities and how local communities can educate those of us who are like in the metaverse. And today, this is like a really inspiring group of speakers who I have enormous amount of respect for. And so maybe if we want to start with Songyi and then Vanessa and then Van and then Wasabi, if you want to just go ahead and just introduce yourself, and then we'll move into what you're working on.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. My name is Songyi. I am Korean born, raised on the street, raised on the road. Now traveling between 3 continents, New Zealand, Africa, and Asia, building different things, and then mainly, ecosystem development, especially the regional ecosystem development, including narrative sense making and creating a new collectives, and so many different stuff here and there as we all do. So happy to be here, and I think more of my story will be shared through our conversation. So that's me. I'm calling in from Bangkok. Nice to meet you all. Van.
Hi, I'm Van. I am in Costa Rica. I am one of the founders of UPE, which is a non-native crypto organization who is making the move to Web3. But we are working with existing communities and community leaders. I've been there about 14 years, and I see that the Costa Rican culture already has so many traces and applications for decentralization. So a lot of DAO tooling are I think it's interesting to all of us because these things can help us coordinate better. So I'm really interested in using new technologies to bring together existing groups. And Wasabi, I'll kick this over to you now.
Awesome! I'm so honored to be here today. Yeah, I'm Alejandro, better known as Wasabi. I'm based in the Dominican Republic. I've been building, let's say, businesses and organizations since I was in high school. So yeah, I came to, I, I tell this inside joke all the time that I've been using Magic Internet Money before the Bitcoin paper was released. So yeah, I feel very comfy online. I'm basically I'm the secretary. That's the title that I gave me. I gave me myself because I kind of do a little bit of everything in Kokonut. Yeah, we just trying to build this blockchain-based co-op as a proof of concept. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is to demonstrate and to empower communities that what is possible when you come together and try to address, let's say, systematic issues. Because the lack of funding for not only agricultural, but it's more like in real life projects is huge. Because when you, let's say, building an app, you have the code, everyone can go see the code, and they give you millions of dollars in funding because they saw something interesting. But when it comes to in real world projects, there are so many variables that you don't even know about them until you are actually doing stuff in the ground. So pretty much that's why I call what we're doing now like proof of concept. That's just what we're doing, like learning how we can then implement, let's say, smart contracts and Web3 tech to automate processes and to lower risk in certain workflow. But that's what we're doing now. We're learning, but we're learning by doing. So far, we have 3 farms in our network that are community owned, and we're working towards the number 4 that is going to be something with a purpose, because 10% of revenue is being donated to a woman association, a local woman association. Another 5% is going to the Kokonut Foundations for us to keep doing cool stuff out there. So yeah, that's a TLDR of what we're trying to do in a nutshell.
Okay, so I did have something in mind that I wanted to do, but you mentioned something that maybe we can take a little detour. So I'm hoping, because you're all storytellers, if you can maybe answer some of these discussion ideas in anecdotes, if you can think of any. No pressure, but if you can, that'd be fun. So maybe Wasabi, you said you call yourself a secretary. So maybe if we can, the 3 of you can go through and say, like, you know, what do you personally do? Like, how do you label what you do? Do you give yourself a role? Do you just say, I am the everything of everything? Yeah, and let's not, I mean, if you want to compare to traditional, you can, but I think I'm imagining the people that are listening are people that are trying to do what you have been doing, and maybe some validation for them too. Wasabi, do you want to go first?
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I call myself the secretary of Kokonut State, because that's what we're trying to build. At the end of the day, we're trying to build a network, a global network of people, a global network of community-owned assets. So I call myself the secretary of that fictional state, because I kind of do whatever I need to do. Like, I don't have, like, for example, I do have, like, I take care of the Web3 stuff. I take care of the, let's say, operations in every side of the ecosystem. But at the end of the day, I don't have, like, a specific function. Like, if they need me in the ground, then yeah, I get out of the house and I go to the projects. But I try to keep myself remain to everything when it comes to operations and the let's say the strategic position that we want to have Coconut as a long-term brand in the ReFi space. Like, pretty much everything you might see online is me behind it. Pretty much that's why I'm a secretary, because in a nutshell, I'm just a messenger between the DAO, the core team, between the next to be launched Coconut Guilds. I'm just in the middle of everything, but I don't have, like, that decision power when it comes to, like, say, what's going to happen next. I just try to balance, to keep a balance. So yeah. Oh, sorry, who's next?
Yeah, well, I can go next. Yeah, I love, like, that we already using coconut, and then, a lot of nature analogy, like Van is in Costa Rica, you're in Puerto Rico, not Puerto Rico, sorry, Dominican Republic, and I'm in Thailand, and it's just a very tropical vibe. It's really hard to explain sometimes to the people that are coming from the traditional, conventional world, like, what do you do? Or even in Web3 space, I was in Tokyo last week, and people ask me, like, what do you do in the space? And it's really tough for me to explain. But one thing that I keep using myself to introduce in one word is, like, I'm a weaver and a pollinator. So basically, a lot of work that I do is, Wasabi was mentioning, connecting different people. And one event that people, like, kind of, like, define who I am, which is also pretty vague, but like a person who connects ecology and technology, and the local and the global, and then also movement and business. So that's kind of like where I sit in the middle of those 3 layers. And I kind of love seeing things that are uh, uh, for some people maybe not so clear, but I am also OG in the crypto space. I've been in the space for 12 years, and then they kind of the time and energy spent in the space kind of like giving me the eyes of something that see things that beyond what has been happening in a more broader way. So using that to really see the opportunity and live in the future, and but also combining what's really important. And as Vanessa said, it's like we really need to bring more wisdom that our community and our ancestors and our indigenous wisdom has been done, can be totally retranslate and then rediscover in our modern world. So I think I am connecting and pollinating, weaving in a very different dimension. And one thing that I always ask myself, what am I doing actually? It's not about like what the title is, but I think I'm a kind of somewhat servant to the ecosystem, and I try to keep finding something that only I can do. Is not as an like I'm best, so this is what I'm gonna be doing, but I am just wanting to fill the gap of different things that is more in the understory rather than overstory, and the more invisible stuff, because I believe in things that actually moving things that are for example, the wind is such a powerful thing, and it could actually kill people, but it's also really needed, but no one can see what that is, and then no one can see the wind, right? So I want to play the role of those impactful, but only Songyi can do. So that's kind of what I do. And I used to build like a product, right? I built a first Bitcoin SMS wallet, and I built the DID systems, but then now we have amazing builders, and there is a new builders coming every day, literally, and I don't need to build anymore, and I just need to look after what has been not done, and then who needs more support. So I'm more like a servant as in that mean, but I'm really enjoying my pollinators work, connecting different things. So it's a long answer to a short question. Thank you, Vanessa.
All right. I love that you call yourself a pollinator. I consider myself that as well. It's part of it. It's part of what we have to do, I think. I think all three of us are visionaries in that we can see what's coming next, and it's something that we continue to move towards. So we're almost like North Stars, like we're Polarises of sorts too, because what we're doing is we have this fixed vision, and we're like plotting the stars, like these constellations. We're creating those around us, and I think that's beautiful. And if you are wind, I am fire. So I like to call myself a grassroots fire starter, because I like to empower people. I like to give them that spark to say like, oh, we can do this. Did I lose you? Oh,
there
I
you are.
did. There we go. I'm back. Uh, yeah, I like to think that like I'm the spark that gives people these ideas to say that this is the way that we can work. I consider myself a storyteller, because I am a bit of an outsider in some ways. Living in Costa Rica, I am an extranjera, so I'm a non-national. But the culture itself is so welcoming that after being there for over a decade, they tell me, they're like, oh, you're one of us now. And I feel that in some ways because I am allowed to participate more in the community. But what I really like to do is find these people who are doing incredible things and connecting the dots. And that's really, our mission at UPE is to share information, but that's sort of the like you said, Songyi, it's the overstory. The understory is who is sharing this information and what is it that they're doing. And so I have just been in these sort of privileged positions, for lack of a better word, especially in times of crisis and when people need things. And it's like, oh, I got a guy. And so what I really love to do is to put people together and see what kind of magic comes out of it, because there are builders, technical and non-technical builders. And in fact, we have our first community retreat next week. And we have we have 30 impact makers coming together. I'm removing them from our local setting. We're going 2 hours outside of town. And I get to be the storyteller. So they're going to be leading conversations, and then what comes out of it is what we're going to do. So I like to provide that container and that framework. And like you, Wasabi, too, I really believe in what we're building, that we can take this and any community will be able to fork it. Instead of giving them answers, we give them prompts or questions for them to be able to fit this framework into like a localized setting. So that's I do a little bit of everything too. I'm an armchair data hobbyist, and I use a lot of that for storytelling. So I get a lot of people who come to me and say, like, how do I tell my story through information? So I love packaging it in a way that people can consume it and understand the impact that's going on. So I too am a servant to our community, and whatever it is that they need, we provide it. So that's a lot of what we're doing next week, is getting together and saying, what do you love? What don't you love? What do we need? What do you need personally? What is like the collective need? And then we go and we fulfill those requests. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Like in a perfect world, like I would love not to be like needed anymore. Like, I build everything from the standpoint of, I don't want this to need me in, let's say, 5-10 years from now. And you can spot that, let's say, mental model in everything we do so far. Because, for example, when I summon the DAO, when I summon the Kokonut DAO, I had this existential question of how do we solve problems before we have it? Because you see, you launch a DAO. We did it in 2021, and then you always have to do or a token burn or a token increase, or you need to fix something in the tokenomics because something changed. So I was like, how do we solve those problems before we have it? And the easiest solution, and it has like multiple benefits, was, okay, let's have no voting power in the DAO. Because when you don't have voting power in something, and you delegate those problems and those decisions to the community, it's easier to solve them, because you have community consensus since let's say, from the get-go, and you don't have like the influence to make a decision. That's how I call myself the secretary, because I only have one vote in the DAO, because that's all I need to do what I need to do. That's all I need to propose a solution. That's all I need to carry over any decision by the DAO. So if we want to empower communities and, let's say, leverage all of that brain power that is out there, you need to build the rails from the get-go. Giving the governance power, delegating the governance power to the community, it was a no-brainer for me decision back in 2021. And it was the right one, because you see all of these DAOs that have the governance power for sale, they are being attacked as soon as the treasury grows. It's something that we are going to replicate now with the soon-to-be launched Kokonut Guilds. Like in the Kokonut Guilds, the idea is that these new entities serve as the operational layer of the ecosystem, and that is community-owned, because the power, the governance power, and the decision-making in the guilds is based on merits and reputation. It's not something that you can go out there and buy. It's something that let's say, you are the leader of the marketing guild, you have governance power in the marketing guild, but you also have governance power in the overall entity because of the amount of points or tokens you have. So the idea is that, yeah, we're creating the entity, we're creating the organization, but as soon as we reach some level of members, it's going to be governed by the people, and by the people that is providing value and by the people that is actually being there for the community. So that's how, like say, we setting up the entity to be owned by the community from the get-go. It's not something, because power is very hard to let go after you have it. So you have all of this power. Let's say I'm Vitalik. I have all of this ether. Like how I can't just let them go. I'm going to use the progressive decentralization playbook, and that's great. But what if is the other way around, and we set something to be owned by the community from the get-go, and that's something that's a value that I'm trying to bring into every something that we create in the ecosystem.
I love that. I need to speak to you more about how you have this structured, because that's where we're moving as well. And I wanted to ask you a question, if that's okay. Um, how, how does it feel? Let me go back and I'll preface it with a bit of an anecdote. Our community doesn't understand the power of decentralization yet. We're just going through the motions without talking about it. And the very first thing that we voted on was like the importance of like community information and what should be featured, and what should essentially be upvoted. And we came up with some guidelines. 4 of us did, and said these are the things that we hold near and dear, and this is how we, this is what we think is important in the community. And then we started pushing these votes over to the community. We had people who were immediately trying to attack and game our system. And there was this moment for us where, like, as we were letting go of this power, some of our founders were concerned that the system was going to be attacked. But our members shot down these proposals and shot down these votes very quickly, because there was so much synergy and alignment within us that I felt like I could fully trust the decisions, even if we disagreed, because there are times where I would find that I would favor something over others. Like for you, like, did you have a moment where you got to let go of that power and just feel your heart swell, just knowing that the people that you had entrusted this system with were, acting on behalf of the collective, and you felt that resonance? Like, have you had moments like that?
Yeah, but okay, so the unfair advantage that we have when it comes to, let's say, design choices for governance is that the Kokonut ecosystem, it works like a holistic being, but at the same time we're trying to keep everything isolated from each other. And I'm trying to create, let's say, check and balance between one entity and the next one. So for example, when it comes to the DAO, okay, I don't need voting power in the DAO because number one, the DAO is a small DAO, so we have voting tokens and we have non-voting tokens. So I don't need voting power. One vote is all I need. And number two, the DAO treasury is owned by the DAO members. So basically, I don't need that power. That was let's say an easy decision because of the dual token system that we have. Okay, like whatever in the DAO, you get rewarded with non-voting tokens. Like everyone contributing to the ecosystem, you get non-voting tokens. You don't get governance power. Only people that get governance power is people contributing funds to the DAO. Very simple, a very simple design in that sense. So when it comes to the guilds, it's mostly the same logic because the guild is the operational layer. So the operational layer is composed by the people actually doing operations. So they need to be in power because they are the ones who are going to grow the guild's treasury. They are the ones who are going to grow the guild's influence and value over time that it's provide to the ecosystem. So they need to be in control. But let's say the trick part is that they are in control, but the power is segregated by domains. So it's segregated by branches of the guilds. It's segregated by, let's say, how much you are actually contributing to the guilds. It's segregating by how active you are. Because a problem that we have is that before you got, let's say, a token allocation 2022, but you stop contributing to the project, but you still have the tokens, you still have the voting power, you still have a say. And that's not right, because the people that is active contributing, they have less voting power than you. So the idea is that voting power should be proportional to how active you are and how much you are contributing to the actual community. So for us, that's why governance is like easy, because we have like a framework to decide how and who and how you get voting power into the entity.
That was very cool. We like jumped way up ahead already to tokenomics and governance, but maybe we can go back a little bit and just describe what your projects are doing. Songyi, do you want to go first? Like maybe you can pick a couple if you want of all the things you're working on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like maybe I can add one more things about like what Van's experience of like finally you feel like you can fully trust the collective, and then they are aligned with intention, and you feel like okay, even if they're either disagreeing or disagreeing, the feeling of letting that power go, I think it's one of the most beautiful and rewarding moment as a leadership. And I think that's what make our like DAO leadership or decentralized leadership or distributed leadership is more powerful compared to the centralized leadership. Because centralized leadership or the conventional organizational structure that it kind of forced everybody to stick with that very strong-minded, opinionated leader, which actually at nature it's just like limited, right? So you one person or just small number of people cannot represent the value that you want to create, right? So I congrats you that you had that experience, and it's so beautiful, and hope that all the leaders in the decentralized world can have more of those experiences. Let me think, what's the best way to choose some of my work. I think because of the topic of our conversation of building things for the real world people, so maybe I can use one of the example that is quite exciting and in relative to our conversation as a nonprofit it involves a nonprofit organization. Is the experience that I had with my previous company. So my background is in social work. I used to work for the international NGO World Vision. You guys might be familiar because like they are in the 70 different country and then last 70 years. And they came to me because they are literally rely on the donation, and the whole world of people's interest, basically the donors' interest has changed rapidly, and that they are no longer as much as before, like compared to like whatever last 2 decades. People are more interested in helping a street cats on their street rather than helping kids in Africa, for example. So they having hard time actually raising money. They don't know what to do, and they've done everything what they can do face to face to the online campaign to including whatever things that they can do, and it just the raising didn't happen. So they were like, okay, what has been done wrong, and the world has changed. So they went back to their mission statement and quickly realized that the donor has to be actually the very active role of change. So they have to actually work on the thing that they are interested in. So the organization internally, they had a very small pilot of like creating donor-driven campaign system, and it quickly did like MVP, and it kind of worked really well. And they came to our service style that is created. I mean, they were in Korea. It was called Weave, and we were all the like individual professionals working together, and we all had our own kind of company. We worked together to provide the services that needs a decentralized design or governance or experiment. So we team up with one of the DAO tooling company and our service DAO and the World Vision, which is a very traditional NGO. You know, you could imagine how much effort it takes to actually convince them to do something. But at the end, we managed to launch a new product, and the NGO actually funded everything. But later, because they're NGO, they cannot even have a share of the company. So they were like a very innovative way of building the new product, which is like a social campaign tool. So anyone can come in and then post what they're interested in, or creating a campaign, which is actually the DAO, and they can kind of like give a role to people who are either contributing time, money, whatever, so they can all design that governance label by themselves, and also can include the token generation if they want to, and then even merging with Web2 payment system. So it was quite interesting project. And so we built that, but the product is there and all that sounds good, but also what was very, very important was the background negotiation and coordination and convening, and bring people together. That was really, really interesting, and that's what I could imagine. All of your work, a lot of it, like what has been shown on the website and the story, that's one part of it, but I know there's a lot more work that has to be done in the background to convening people and like leading them and then bring them together. So yeah, my kind of advice is that really people has to come up with a problem. I think a lot of problem of Web3 space is that we're building solution that we like to see or we like to use, but it's not much a problem-oriented solution. So normal people cannot use, or normal people are not interested in using it. So I think, have to identify what is the problem that we want to solve, and then also as a solution, what is the solution that only Web3 or blockchain or Ethereum or DAO or our community can provide, right? Once you don't find that market fit, it just doesn't work. I mean, it could be our passion project, but like no one actually will care at the end. The longevity of the community or product is very short. So what I'm saying is like if you are really focusing on very traditional, very old problem, the solution can be very innovative. So don't be afraid of solving the old problem. We don't, not all of us has to work on something very fancy that no one understands, right? So I think that's what the key message for like a building new system or building a system for the real people. And we got to solve the real world problem. And it could be fintech, it could be governance, it could be actually mental health, or whatever that is. And I believe that the technology that our friends are building, and then the stories that we are building, and the narrative and framework that we are actually experimenting and experiencing, it all has value to it, but we just has to find the right fit. So kind of that's one of my favorite product that we built. And it was like interesting because like now our service style members are owning the share of the company, right? So how tradition that is, you could think of it like a biggest NGO in the world to like giving that share of the new spin-off startup that is now run by their NGO member that has been working in that NGO for like 15, 20 years. Now they're CEOs and they're all women, and the service style members are actually owning the share of the company. Like it's just like such a way of like interesting story and empowering. So that's yeah, the story that I want to share. Of course, there are more stories to tell, but I think this is the most relevant thing that I want to share.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing. And thank you for recognizing building, building solutions for real world problems. I think Christine and I have these really fun dialogues. She's like, have you heard of this? And she knows of all this really cool tech. And I'm like, yeah, but who's using it? And she's like, I don't know. Um, and it's fun to see these things emerge, but I really want to see the needle move on change. Like like where I am, I come from a background of like Web2, like web development, marketing, and working with nonprofits of all levels, enterprise to, mom and pops. I've started my own as well. And it's cool because when I started, it's a decentralized community. And this was back in 2005 when we didn't know what it was. And when I came across DAOs, I'm still new to the ecosystem. I'm, 2021, 2020, I guess, is when I started playing around with things. And I don't care about DeFi. I moved to Costa Rica because I felt like I didn't have a chance in the United States of making any sort of impact, finding any sort of job. I lived in a place where there were more people who wanted to live there than there were jobs available. So everyone just got treated like garbage. And then you compound that with working a nonprofit where it's, you're a bleeding heart, right? And people take advantage of your attachment to certain issues, whether it's social justice or it's animals. And so, pardon my language, but I just said, fuck it. Like, I'm done. And I rage quit my life in 2011. And I was like, I'm just going to use my tech skills that I have, and I'm going to go live, and I'm going to drink coconuts, and I'm going to surf the rest of my life. Because like, if the world's going to be set on fire, at least I'm going to have a nice view, and I'm going to have fun doing it. So I took this very selfish approach because I just was so distraught with the way that the world was going. And I'm fairly introverted. I'm very introverted, actually. And I'm just tired of like governance being a popularity contest. And little side view real quick, I'm home visiting right now, and on the East Coast, and my mom had all of my report cards. She had basically like my childhood, like all of my accomplishments, all of my, awards and everything I'd won. And I was in student government as a child, like in middle school. My first position was Secretary of Ecology, because I knew I cared about these issues at such a young age. And then I remember getting to high school and still wanting to be involved in governance, and then just looking at it as like a popularity contest. And I'm like, well, fuck this. Like, I'm not popular. I have ideas. Like, I'm not particularly charismatic, and I don't really like to be in front of people. So, but I still want that power. So a lot of this drive that I have now is like, how do you give these invisible voices a voice? And what I found when I moved to Costa Rica, I was working online, and I was able to use my voice and to use my talents in a way that I was able to make a living for myself. And I thought, the whole world deserves this. No one saw me. No one knows, what I look like. It's a complete meritocracy. And I'm like, that's the world that I believe in. And so that's a lot of, why I love DAO so much. Like, I tell people, I'm like, I didn't care about crypto until I found out what a smart contract was. And then I went, oh man, you know how much that could have saved me? Like, that could have saved me 40 hours in this particular governance issue right here, or this would have saved us like, months at a time for trying to move money from a treasury or opening up a bank account. And it felt like that's, where I want to be. And also working in like the Web2 space, looking how corporate networks and centralized networks just have all of the power and say so, it completely can immobilize communities. I mean, Facebook can say, I don't like your post, and they can completely, remove you from your audience of hundreds of thousands or millions of people. And that type of like that power structure just isn't something that sits right with me on a personal level. So looping back into what it is that we do at UPE, I really believe that decentralization can change the world. And what I found was that I know how to make money off of information. I can take information and I can translate it into real money. And I thought, if I can do it, I can teach these communities to be able to do this and to take ownership of their information. Because Facebook shouldn't own it, Google shouldn't own it, the community itself should own it. And so I'm like, well, what does that look like? And when we came up with UPE in 2020 after the pandemic, we weren't into the crypto space at all. But we knew we had this checklist of everything that we wanted. And we also had a hit list of everything that we wanted to kill, like middlemen and yeah, and like Karens, like negativity and reviews. And just we wanted to create this like a non-biased information hub to where people could come and they could give and receive. And so that's what we do is every community needs information. And so we're slowly building out this tech stack of like what it is that you need. And we started as a directory. We got some angel investment to create a directory. And in terms of it working at the technical level, yeah, like we were outranking like people's websites very quickly who had businesses, but the businesses didn't care. Like none of them wanted to come into our ecosystem. They just weren't interested in it. So last year we actually lit the whole idea on fire and just polled our friends and family and these community leaders and we're like, what do you want? Like what type of information do you want? And so that's where we are now. So they said, well, we want events because we don't know when this is happening. We want to know water reports. We want to know when the electricity is going to be shut off because that's a real thing where we are. And so we were able to deliver on those things and just hearing our members go like, wow, I had a suggestion and it was implemented and we built it. Like you built that because I suggested it. And we're like, yeah, because you have power. And so what we're doing is it's quite institutional, our community. That's why a lot of these people have never met before, even though there's only 60,000 people in our canton, which is like a county. They haven't come across one another because there hasn't been a need for them. And they're so inundated with just their everyday living that they haven't stopped to think that there are people who might not be in the same vertical as them that have the answers or know the person who has the answers. And so, yeah, we're an information hub, but what we really are is this institutional network where we can get either information, we can generate impact together. So we have, like I said, we have a digital tool set, but because we are working with hyper-local communities, we actually have the privilege of creating these spaces for people. So now we're starting to create physical spaces, creating physical events for people to come together. And not only do we get things done, like we have fun. We had a carnival back in May and we didn't know how many people were going to show up. We just knew we wanted to throw like an event for the kids. Like that was one of our members was like, I want to throw a kids carnival. And I'm like, I want to raise money for NGOs and I want them to play nice together. And so we fused this idea of let's have a carnival, but let's get the NGOs to work for it, work a booth, and then they will get a cut of the community pot for the day. And so we didn't use any traditional social media to like publicize this event. And we expected 200 people to show up and we would have been really happy. We ended up with 600 people. And so it was 3 times bigger than what we got or what we were expecting. And that was exciting. But in and of itself, we found out that these NGOs started to collaborate immediately. 2 of them that met, they formed an event, they hosted an event a month later. Another one, there was a conflict event of days, like they both had an event scheduled in the other days. And one of them postponed their event so they could go support the other one. And so as we create this network, we can empower these people because they didn't know that these events were going on. right? They didn't know that they were infringing on anyone. But we can start to create these networks to where they can start to work together, they can share ideas. And that's why we want to put things on chain so that everyone can go and they can review each other's progress. And we're interested in having other communities fork this as well. Because what we're doing in our community isn't actually going to work up the road 50 kilometers away in the next community, because they have a whole other set of issues. We're a beach town, they're a resort town, they're dealing with high rises, we're dealing with, mom and pop, 10, 20 hotel places. And I don't want to have a say so in what they're doing, but I want to know what's going on. And so that's, we're introducing these ideas of decentralization without calling it decentralization, just saying, take care of your own little garden. These people will take care of their garden. They go, okay. Introducing them again, like to voting, to saying, I actually have a voice, that it's not some editor that's going to spoon feed me information. I get to choose what's important for my community. So again, like going back to the fire starter and a pollinator, it's like, just giving them the spark to say, oh, like if we can do this with a carnival, then maybe we can do this with our road system. We can govern our water distribution better. And so it's like, if you create these fun use cases for people, then they're going to get these ideas later on to say, how can I do this in this application, in this setting? So yeah, we're having fun, we're sharing information, but that's the ground floor. I really have so much faith in our communities, and especially in the people of Costa Rica, that they're going to pick it up and say, this is how we need to be. We need to be applying this technology to all of these verticals in our life.
Wasabi, you want to tell us about Kokonut?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a lot. That was great. Yeah, Coconut, like from the, let's say, from the local point of view, it was very like it was like a rocky start, let's call it like that. But I remember that for us to get the planting permits for, like, when we began with the project, we had to go to the local town hall, and we actually had to. It wasn't like it's not like ambush. It's not a word. It was more like everyone in the town wanted to know, like, hey, what is that these people is trying to do? Because it's not like we are completely outsider, because one of the core team member is from that town where we began to work. But everyone was like curious of, hey, what is they trying to do? So I had to go into the local town hall and actually talk to the people and explain them in a very simple way that what is that we're trying to do. So I just told them, hey, we're trying to build a co-op, but we're trying to do a co-op that is in the internet. That the information, the treasury, the decisions, everything is public, everything is transparent, and everything is immutable. So, I explained then, okay, co-op, transparency, and let's say wider decision making, and they got it in 1 second, because that's something that they know, and that's something that they know that they have problem with. They have, like, because we've been having co-ops forever, but they suffer from the same problem, like centralization of decision making, like most of the members don't have a say. So I explained them, hey, we're trying to create this improved version of a co-op, but something that is owned by you, something that is owned by the people, something that the decisions, they don't come from us. They come from the consensus of, hey, let's agree on what is the outcome that we want to achieve, and then let's set, like I said, the balance and checks towards those goals. And that's basically what we're doing. We're creating a coordination framework aimed to the, let's say, grassroots projects, but with a bottom-up perspective. Because That's why we haven't expanded the funding that we get in grants and so on into developers or trying to build these high-tech solutions. Because what we want to do, like step one, is a proof of concept, and step two is something that could be replicated by anyone, no matter if you have access to the top Web3 tech or not. Like the idea is that you can take all of these processes, I mean, modular process, and you can lay out the steps, and you can like pick and choose. Like, okay, this is what we need for our community, and this is something that we don't need. And you can basically use the Kokonut framework to build these customized green assets that are owned by the community, and you can pick and choose what governance mechanisms you want to use, how you want to distribute the power, and so on. Because it's like Van said, every community have its own needs, and there is no like a silver bullet. That's why everything we do, we try to do it from the flexibility point of view of how flexible is this going to be, this structure, like long term. So yeah, what we're trying to do is to test out our methodology, so then we can open source the knowledge, but it's not like open source the knowledge, but it's more like build the right automations in every process that basically solve the need that that local community is facing. For example, in our case, where we deploying our first set of farms, the biggest problem that they have is that number one, that's they have a 39% poverty rate. Is very high. It's like the poorest region in the Dominican Republic. Number two, they don't have like they don't export anything. Like they don't have like a single company that is creating something and selling that overseas. They also don't have any company that any local company that is importing goods from the outside, meaning that people is leaving the town, like because there is no opportunities. The only opportunities are captured by corporations, and those corporations they pay below the minimum wage to the people, and that's not that's not even the problem. The problem is that those source of value that they have right now that are captured by corporations, there is no circular economy built into the whole flow. Because okay, they pay below minimum wage, but then all of the huge revenue it goes to somewhere else. So the let's say the externalities of what we're trying to build is that number one, the land is owned by the people. Number two, those who work in the land and earn like a pay, like a minimum wage, let's say, but it's more like minimum wage because they are the owners. They just getting something in the meantime as a workers, but they are working in the land, and they provide like they are auditors. They provide oversee to whatever we're trying to do in their land. Is them actually doing the work and making sure that we are doing everything how we are supposed to be doing it. And that creates like a circular economy, because the money is not going to leave town. It's going to be circulating in the same place, but what's going to happen is that people is going to every farm, it brings prosperity in whatever place we deploy. And that's something that by default, as they own, basically they partners in the project, by default, the circular economy is created. And I feel like that's the biggest problem with corporations, because they capture value, they basically deprive people from whatever is intrinsic of them. Like they own the town, they should be the ones reaping the value of everything around them. And I'm very proud of the is that circular economy, the circular flow of value is inbuilt into the design of how we operate.
I really need to speak with you. We have such similar issues where we are because we're in a tourist destination. The tax money that goes in that comes from our area is we're funding the rest of the country, like in Guanacaste. Like that's just where so many people come. Um, but again, we have 60,000 people in our canton and over 5.5 million people in Costa Rica, and so the money goes into the capital, and then they redistribute it based on the population, which sounds lovely in theory, except we have this uh, we have people coming in and out that aren't natives and they aren't living in the area, so that means we get no money ever, and everything goes back to the capital and then it gets redistributed, and that's not just money, that's also like food. So food that's produced 20 kilometers away a lot of the time goes to the capital, it gets taxed, and then you get it back at a premium. And so these ideas of creating these circular economies are something that we're really interested in, because that's what we had to do during COVID in order to feed our community, was actually to find these local farmers who would provide for us. So what you have going on, I'm so interested, because you are doing it, like you're collaborating in some ways with the institutions as well. So you do have that open door. We also have an open door policy with them. And so if we can use crypto to create these circular economies, then we take fiat out of the equation. I think our community is going to be in a much better standing place because the money will stay where we are.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like that's the biggest problem when it comes to, because you have these, like I said, you are funding the rest of the country, and it shouldn't be like that. It should be more like, like, I don't know, like sometimes we humans are like weird, because it's every region, it's like people. Every people has a superpower. Every region has something. But sometimes it's coordination and also the lack of knowledge. Because, for example, when it comes to how we are operating from the, let's say, planting standpoint, we are doing a whole organic flow. Everything from fertilizers to the whole process is organic. So when you have a lack of knowledge about something, you are ignorant of the value that might provide. That's why one of the first requests that I have from the first farm that we deployed was, hey, okay, we have one farm, we have this planting methodology that we are basically using trash or using something that other people don't know how to process it, and we are creating fertilizers. So step one, like my number one request was, let's convert our first farm into a model farm and something that can be called like a training site. So the idea is that this farm is going to serve as an onboarding tool. So we can onboard local farmer into the Kokonut Network. Also, we can onboard them into using organic practices to grow their produce, basically reduce the dependency that they have into chemicals, into and creating a circular economy. Because if we producing the fertilizers in-house, then we don't need to spend funds into a corporation that is going to produce the fertilizers for us. So that's really important in my opinion.
So we're at the hour. I don't know. Do any of you have 15 minutes maybe? Yeah. I think I would love to close. Maybe we can start with Wasabi and then Van and then Songyi. You have context of like actual people doing actual things on Earth with other people. And you also have context of all of this stuff we're doing, like on the internet and in the metaverse and with blockchain, and so I would love it if you sent us off with, you know, maybe some wisdom on how we can, those of us that are working on governance, working on blockchain, working in DAOs, how the technical people, the like systems people can have some understanding, so that when those tools and those systems are being built, it actually is beneficial for the people that you are helping, that you're working with. So maybe Wasabi, and then Van, and then Songyi.
Yeah, like I love that question because that's directly related to the value proposition that we have for the Kokonut Network long term. Like my long term vision, and this is something personal, something that I want to achieve, is that at some point in time, we have like this global community of DAO members, of community members, of people that belongs to the Kokonut ecosystem, and that basically that power that you have, whether it was like by contributing funds to the DAO or by contributing to the Kokonut guilds, you can put it to use and can give you access. And by access, I mean, like, for example, let's say that you are a DAO member in Canada and you cannot grow coconuts out there, but you like coconuts. The idea is that long term, as a member of the coconut ecosystem, you have access to this coconut inventory, and you can set up a business if you want, because we're going to give you credit. We're going to give you access to the, let's say, to the network wide of value that we are creating, and you can set up a business for you or for your family, or you can start something just because you have access to these community governed and community owned network. And that's why I said that is part of the thesis that we're trying to build on, because global communities, people from North America, people from Asia, people from Latin America, we all have something in common, and is that we have interest of our own. Like I want to do something, Bang wants to do something else, Songyi wants to do something. So that's what is common between everyone. But everyone has like different stuff that we want to do. Let's call it like that. So we are factoring in those variables into how we design the network. So long term, it doesn't matter like what I like to do. I can do it because I have access to these these wide range of resources. No matter what Songyi wants to do, we have access to. So, for example, let's put it into practice. Let's say that Songyi is a governance axis, and the Coconut Guilds, they are in charge of the governance side of the ecosystem. So she can come to the guild and she can contribute to the ecosystem by doing governance, by doing something that she actually loves to do. Because at the end of the day, every organization have the same needs. What the only difference is the approach. Probably, long term we have a governance need that around how do we govern this network of localized assets. That's a problem that we're gonna need to solve, let's say, long term. But we already decentralized the treasury power, like the financial power is decentralized already, and we are decentralizing the execution power, that is the operational layer, the guilds. So at the end of the day, those two powers, they are going to come into agreement. So whoever is providing liquidity, whoever is providing, let's say, the actual last mile operation, they are going to come into agreement, because I have the financial power to have a say over how we allocate funding towards that goal, and you have a say on the approach. So, that's why it makes sense for us to use decentralized and give wisdom of the power to the community and keep the flexibility. If we want to make a change from the systematic standpoint, because at the end of the day, we're trying to solve a problem of liquidity for in real life projects. So, decision making has to be pushed to the edge when it comes to financial decisions and when it comes to how do we actually solve the problem. So there is, in long term in the ecosystem, there is something for everyone, and hopefully the guilds can open and fill out these not yet decided stuff that we need to solve, like to put it in some words.
I love that. You are such a pioneer, Wasabi. Like, wow. Like, what? It's such a privilege just to be listening to you. So thank you again so much for sharing.
Thank you, thank you. I'm just learning, like, I'm just trying to learn about all of these. Because, like, it's crazy because before I made the decisions about how we want to govern everything, I wasn't aware of Web3 communities. Because I have nothing in governance and in the decisions that we made in 2021 has changed in these past 2 years that I have in the ecosystem. I'm just happy that I have so much learning yet to be merged and yet to be incorporated. But the beauty is that since I don't have that control and I don't want it, I'm gonna have the support from the community to make those long-term decisions, let's say. So yeah, I'm very excited of what is to come for us. So yeah, thank you.
I love it. So, okay. So the question is, what can we tell people about building something that's beneficial? I have two. One is technical, and that is to build something that people can actually use. And it sounds very intuitive. Be like, well, yeah, of course. But like when you get out there and you, as a developer or working with developers, you think that you've built something that'll change the world. And maybe on a technical level, it will. And we did at first with Upe, building this directory and being able to share information like through search engines. But the people wouldn't touch it. And so what we did for the last 2 years is we kept lowering the bar and saying, will you do this? And we got no. Will you do this? No. Will you do this? No. And we finally got to the point, and technology has risen at the same time to allow us to build systems. So now what we've done is we've integrated AI in with our information sharing and some data scraping tools as well, to where it's just a few clicks of a button to share information. We use like ChatGPT under the hood. People can upload a flyer, and instead of going in and typing and spending all this time, ChatGPT just takes everything and it fills it out into a form. And so something that took 10 minutes when we first started now takes less than a minute, and people will bite. And what we can do is we can still, we have bounties. We can still pay that same amount of money in bounties, and all of a sudden you have people who are spending, like I said, 10 to 15 minutes doing something. Now it's 1 minute, and that the value isn't actually how long that you're staying on this platform and doing the information. The real value is retrieving that information. So my first piece of advice is to build something that people actually will use, and it's good to go slow sometimes to test these things out. And so now we could have pushed this out. We did the math, and when we had it, version 1, we were going to have a sales team to go onboard people and to have a whole support staff. Now we don't. We need a much smaller support staff. And when you show people how easy it is, they go, oh, I can do that. So to build things that people actually will use and that you hand it to, like, I don't want to say the lowest common denominator, but like I can hand this to my mother and my father and they can do this. And they're in their 70s, which I think is like incredible. The second thing I recommend is really building the culture and the community and finding these common threads and making it basic. So for us, we all believe that having information, community information, is the public good. And so I can say, I believe that I want this information, and I believe that my neighbor, and I believe the person who lives 10 kilometers away from me, we all deserve access to that information. And so if we can all find resonance and consensus with that statement right there, and how we achieve that and what that information is and what it is that we're trying to build together becomes details. And so the more detailed you get into, well, I think, this should be an event, or I think that this should, you can actually continue to like roll back and go a level up and say, like, find that consensus as you, like, when you get more detailed, that's when you find that you have a lot more differences. And so you can keep moving back to that common goal of, whatever it is. For us, it's sharing hyperlocal information, and you can find at, where those sticky points are. And then instead of having these, governance issues, and you have these like internal blowups, it's like they're actually much smaller, and it keeps a lot of cohesion within our community. So I think the culture is important, and I also think that really making your contributors feel valued is something that's really important, because a lot of times they are doing it what feels like on a volunteer basis, even if it is retroactive. They need to understand that what they're doing is important to the ecosystem. So the technology can only bring that so far. Like, we need space makers, we need more Songyis in the world who can create these containers and make people feel like they're really part of something. And when they do, they respond a lot healthier, as opposed to feeling outside of the ecosystem and then it's something that's separate to them. So just treat everyone with love and kindness, and have a lot of patience for everyone along the way, and just love each other through the whole process, and have fun, because we aren't on this earth to struggle. We're all here to experience this beautiful planet that we have. And I think that it's important to be mindful and present and love what you're doing right now, and not say, when I achieve this goal, when I launch this, when the DAO votes on this, I will be in a happier place. It's like, no, I'll be happy now that that we're all in this mindset to be able to do this. Yeah, that's it, Wasabi. Me too. Like, me too. Like, I just have a lot of fun. And the more fun I have, the more I can see the people enjoy the experience around me, because this enthusiasm is contagious. So if we're gonna go viral, let's go viral with love.
Awesome. I think Van covered a lot of good points. I think my points is, I think I've said this many times in the different talks. I think when it comes to the governance, tools comes like the ladies, I think. And people just need to understand and having fun by governing this together. I mean, starting from conversation and proposing things. And I never actually like tell people to launch token or even doing on-chain governance when they don't even have a forum to propose something. I think that's the worst mistake that you can make, and the fastest way to die off like your community, literally. So, and also when we talk about like decision making, it's not the voting tool that makes the decision, it's actually people. And the decision making, and oftentimes, is starting from the conversation and understanding the context rather than like voting or like, okay, let's make decision. Proposal is also in the middle, but people has to understand what we need and what I want, what I don't want, and like having more awareness and intentionality around that. And then, starting from the temper check, you just talk with some people around your network, and then, hey, do you think it's a good idea? And it's a very natural way of communicating and then making decision. And we, human society has been making decisions for so long without technology at all. Just like our wisdom technology, that was what it was needed. And oftentimes we just, a lot of Web3 and especially the tech governance system folks are like, okay, this is what we probably need, and they start building tools without having all this context. But now I feel like last maybe 2 years that the sentiment has changed, and then people start to understand that actually we should look into the behavior rather than tech. So I think there's hope in that sense. So like, let's make it more fun, and then let people actually do their governance have it like a patterns or habits and then exercises and just like fully embrace what the governance DNA look like in your community. And then once that's done, tech is easy, very, very easy. It's already, we have enough tools, right? So that's kind of like one thing. And during those process, I think one very, very important thing that oftentimes we miss or overlook or like valuing less is like a role of moderator and facilitators and translator. Because even if we have like community that with are like-minded people, it's not, let's say, everyone's governance level and everyone's storytelling level, everyone's awareness level are very different. So we probably need to actually invest more in a people that are really attentive and then like listening to others and are willing to roll their hands to actually facilitate and moderate and with a more empathy and EQ, rather than IQ, you know what I mean? I think we have those people naturally born, but we can also train ourselves and other people to be that role. And I think the more facilitator and more moderator, more people in your community can actually sense make different things and understand what they're, what they actually can facilitate. I think that's extremely important. That's where that the waste of your body of a community, and then you have to have a very strong waste, otherwise it will collapse very easily with a very simple move. So yeah, that's kind of the thing. I think Wasabi and then Van covers really good points. And I mean, if I can add a little bit more, I recently started and catalyzing at the moment a community called Pagoda, which is an alliance of a lot of community builders in Asia. So like all the community leaders that is doing Ethereum events like here and there, like, so we have like a 12 different country representative in the one group, and we start actually activating a lot of different things. And we had a vision session and we come up with some sort of a framework of like everybody's idea. And the one thing that we're practicing is like a protocol being that's kind of social layer, and we have a circulation layer, we have a tech layer. Then all these layers actually kind of complementing each other. It's not just a tech that is more important, but you have to have like a DNA, a protocol being practices. We always practice mindfulness together, and they're doing book clubs and then kind of align ethos and all that in the circulation layer of like a practical things of things doing together, and then resourcing and events and talents that keep circulating by meeting together and then through our activity. And yeah, so there's like some things and a lot of creativity that can be present. And I wish that our whole of ecosystem is balancing our energy and attention to the more creative things, and then layer 0, which is a cultural DNA rather than like tech only. Hope that we can balance that out. Yeah, so through that, the invitation is there. If you guys are ever coming to DEF CON, we are planning to have a global majority district, which is district dedicated to the Africa and Latam and Asia, which is global majority. We are replacing global South to the majority because this is where all the peoples are. This is where all the future users gonna be. This is where all the innovation gonna come up. So I would love to have like this conversation in that stage, because like DEF CON is very limited space, and we don't have enough space to shine these real world cases, and especially around this like a real practices. So yeah, let me know. We'll keep chat, and then yeah, Van is coming, so Epic and Wasabi. If anyone from Kokonut coming, I would love to have them and support them as well.
Yeah, we having that combo. I got some discount codes from the organizer. So yeah, we having that combo internally.
Amazing. Yeah, so join GM District, and then we will start having community calls with all the GM builders very soon. So feel free to join as well.
Okay, I'm gonna